It's time for the Green Bay Packers to go all in on a major trade for a pass rusher. Go get it done.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It's time for the Green Bay Packers to go make a move. T.J. Watt is at an impasse with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just made a big move that I don't understand at all. Moving Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith. I don't understand that trade. I'll be honest. But T.J. Watt is not happy about his contract, according to Adam Schefter. The Steelers would like to re-sign T.J. Watt, but of course they would. The Bengals would like to re-sign Trey Hendrickson. Of course they would. But if they were close to doing that, number one, we'd hear about it. Number two, the players wouldn't be so pissed about it. So now, right now, everyone feels good about their roster. That's the beauty of this time of year. Oh, everyone just, hey, we got a chance to win it. The Steelers, you just get Aaron Rodgers. You bring in a corner that you're really excited about, so excited you give up an all-pro safety for reasons that, I don't understand it. You feel like you can win the title right now. That has to be the way that you feel, even though they're like the NBA team where they missed their title window. They're the last one to realize they missed their title window. And the owner is going, just get me to 45 wins and I'll be happy. I just want that playoff revenue money and we'll be good. By the way, that has been happening in the NBA from time immemorial. And unfortunately, for a long time, it was the Milwaukee Bucks. If you're the Packers, can you play into a little bit of Steelers hubris here and say, look, you guys, defensively, you make everything work. You just got Jalen Ramsey, who you guys love. You've got Highsmith there. You've got Hayward there. I know he's at the end of his career, but why don't you moved on from George Pickens? You don't really have a good secondary pass catching option there. Why don't we throw you one of these receivers? We'll throw you a day 2 pick even. Sweeten the pot in there. A day 2 pick. And you can make your run this year with Aaron Rodgers, get a receiver that's ready to go. You're worried about paying T.J. Watt. I get it. 31 years old. Hey, listen, Pittsburgh, we understand. It's why we don't normally pay those guys, but we'll take him. We'll bring him back to Wisconsin, and he will be a conquering hero here, and we'll see you in the Super Bowl. By the way, I did think it was funny. The Pittsburgh Steelers account posted a video highlight package of Aaron Rodgers and conspicuously left out the Super Bowl highlights against, you guys know, you get it. Is that enticing enough? I don't know why the Pittsburgh Steelers would trade T.J. Watt, but I also don't know why they would trade Minkah Fitzpatrick. They certainly did not get enough for me to go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense why they did that. I still don't understand it. So if they're going to make some of these weird trades, then why not you be the team that benefits from the weird trade? You go be the team that makes that splash move, because I've been making the case all offseason. The NFC is wide open. Philadelphia has come back to the pack. Detroit, with the coaching stuff, I think they're coming back to the pack. I think Minnesota, they're going to be one of those teams that falls out of the playoff race, because I just don't think from a talent standpoint and from a quarterback standpoint, I have a lot of faith in them right now. I don't have a belief in anybody in the NFC West. I think the Packers are better than all of those teams right now today. If you get T.J. Watt, are you the favorite? Are you the favorite in the NFC? If you get TJ Watt, are you the favorite in the NFC? If the answer is yes, or if you're in that front office and the answer is yes, then you have to do it. You have to do it, or you have to at least explore it. Maybe Pittsburgh says, no, this is our guy. We're not moving off this. We're not going to entertain anything. It seems like if that's where they were, if that was the position that they were holding, then they would have just paid him already. And we don't even have to go down the rabbit hole of like, yes, the Packers could have had TJ Watt. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's not relevant. But guess what? If Brian Gutekunst wants to undo all of the ill will, create some goodwill. I mean, it's hard to think of a trade short of like they traded for Justin Jefferson, but like a feasible trade that would engender more goodwill than trading for TJ Watt. Like, let's just pause for a moment and entertain this. Of the pass rushers in the NFL, Myles Garrett's not getting traded, and I don't think the amount that it would take to get him would make any sense. Who are the other best pass rushers in the NFL? There's a tier there. Hendrickson, it's Nick Bosa, it's TJ Watt. By the way, Trey Hendrickson also not happy. We know that. TJ Watt, of that next group with Danielle Hunter and some of the best passers, Will Anderson, who you're not trading on a rookie contract if you're Houston. But I think if the Packers traded for TJ Watt, it would get a higher approval rating among Packer fans than Will Anderson, than Danielle Hunter, than Nick Bosa, than Trey Hendrickson. It might be a higher approval rating move than Myles Garrett just because of what you're going to have to give up. Like, if you told me you could get TJ Watt for just a first round pick, by the way, I would do that. I don't think that's the market, but I would do it. But the cost for Myles Garrett is 2 firsts and a second and something. Like, that was the Khalil Mack price. I would rather have TJ Watt with just the pick. So when you put all these pieces together, you go, okay, this is a no-brainer. Why are the Packers not doing this? Well, number one, the Packers just generally don't do this. But I don't know if this front office has that sort of mindset. They just don't. I have also been someone who has defended this front office. I know that there is this accusation that is made. Oh, they don't want to win. They don't want to go all in. They want to make sure that they're planning for the now and the later, and that undercuts their ability to plan for the now. I don't buy that. They just don't make these kinds of moves if the cost is, let's say, a first round pick. If you could do it for a day 2 pick, if you could do it for a third and Romeo Doubs, even a third and Dontavian Wicks, would you do that trade? Would you do a third and Dontavian Wicks for TJ Watt right now, plus a top market extension? And let's maybe assume he'll take a little bit less to, number one, spite the Pittsburgh Steelers, and number 2, come home. Would you do that? Like, we talked about this with DK Metcalf. I think TJ Watt is just objectively a more impactful player. And is exactly the kind of player that I think could come into Green Bay and just wreak havoc. The greatest fumble creator of all time. He's just a big play waiting to happen. And I understand down to down, the consistency isn't quite there anymore. But when you have Rashawn Gary on the other end, who, by the way, bears a lot of resemblance in terms of the way that he wins to Alex Highsmith in Pittsburgh, those big interior pass rushers, and he's that speed off the edge. He's exactly the kind of pass rusher they don't really have. Everyone's big, strong, fast. He's big, strong, fast, but not in that, he's not 6'5", 270 like Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary. He's 6'5", 6'4" and change with long arms, but a skinnier guy, a leaner cut guy, and wins with speed, wins with polish, wins with counters. He's not just going to try and run through your face every time. This is the time of year when everyone can talk themselves into winning. And that would be one reason why, if you're the Steelers, you'd go, we're not going to do this. But it would also be a reason to go, hey, we got Aaron Rodgers. Like, we can make this move, win now, and try and set ourselves up for the future with a receiver maybe down the road, another pick to help us go get a quarterback if we need one. There's some opportunities here. All right. I want to talk about this offense for a second and the continued disrespect because I've had enough. I really have. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about the baseball or the lights, see what I did there. Golf on the green or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. You have to give yourself a chance to enjoy these games sometimes because it can be a slog. Baseball especially. Look, I love baseball, but it can be homework sometimes. 162 games plus playoffs is a lot. So you get into those dog days, July, August, the non-Mizorowski days for the Brewers if you're a Brewers fan. You might need a little incentive. FanDuel's got it for you. Plus, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app or visit FanDuel.com to get started. I don't understand it. I don't understand what else needs to happen. Because another list comes out, and I don't want to talk about the list. Matt LaFleur, not a top 10 coach. Bummer. Another talking head goes on national TV and says some chucklehead thing like Caleb Williams is already better than Jordan Love because interceptions. Okay. Cool. Nice. We're still doing interceptions in the year of our dear Lord 2025. Forget the sacks, forget the fumbles, forget the value added, forget the positive play generation. Just like 11 plays over the course of the season. That's the good sample. Sure. And Bears homerific wish casting aside, there still is this perception, and I believe it's a fantasy football problem, that this offense is not reliable and it's not very good. So somehow, a coach that's not in the top 10 has elevated a quarterback who's also not in the top 10. In fact, a rookie who was one of the least efficient and least effective, least productive quarterbacks in the league last year. Is already better than the Packers quarterback. And a group of receivers that now is, I think, underrated, where it's like, well, it's a bunch of 4s and 5s. No, it's not. But that's the offense. That's the offense that is top 5 in DVOA. That's top 10, top 8 in EPA per play, in success rate, in explosive plays. What more do you need to see? What is missing here? What is the problem? And my answer is fantasy football is a big reason, because other than Josh Jacobs, you're not drafting anybody on this team. Not high anyway. And Matt LaFleur has been criminally underrated his entire career. Look at what has happened to Aaron Rodgers since he left Green Bay. Look at what happened to Aaron Rodgers in 2022 when he didn't want to do the thing that any other quarterback would do, and that is just throw to the guys. Just throw to the receivers. Don't be too worried about getting into the perfect play. Don't be too worried about getting into every hand signal, changing every play at the line of scrimmage. Just run the damn offense. No, I'm too good for that. And then in 2023, hurt. 2024, terrible. Jets move on, toxic. 2025, now the Steelers for nothing. Do you remember what Aaron Rodgers looked like before that? What he looked like in 2017? Hurt. 2018, terrible. 2019, like kind of meh. And then the most Matt LaFleurian version of this offense in 2020, really that we've seen since the last 2 years. And then they evolve it again in 2021. And then they rejigger it on the fly. And in the second half of the season, when Rodgers actually starts throwing to Christian Watson and not pouting about Christian Watson, The offense starts to get in gear a little bit. Wow, amazing. If you just throw just trust the receiver, just go do the thing, just go play football. It works. And then on the fly, this roster, youngest playoff team ever, youngest team to win a playoff game ever, on the road. That doesn't give Matt LaFleur any cred. By the way, Brian Gutekunst did a hell of a job revamping this roster. Doesn't get any credit for that. Because they don't have anyone you would draft in the first 3 rounds of your fantasy football draft, other than Josh Jacobs. And if it's just a running back, no one's going to care. But the Buccaneers, because they have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The Dolphins, because they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Even though those teams, not as good as Green Bay, they've got players you know. They've got players you've heard of. They've got guys on your fantasy team. Guys that have been on your fantasy team for 10 years. Guys that have fantasy football mainstays. This is the fantasy football brain rot that exists among NFL media and among some NFL fans. Do they have anyone that I would draft early on my fantasy team? I mean, there's one of the biggest names in podcasting. Talks about it constantly in his NFL analysis. And it's someone I like to listen to. But they are perpetuating this idea, the primacy of fantasy as a useful indicator for player quality, and it's just not. I mean, how many times have we seen quarterbacks especially put up numbers like the Blake Bortles where you're just like backdoor covering in the fourth quarter, throwing 3 touchdowns after you're 9 of 25. Now, there were some accusations that Jordan Love did that, and there were some games where he did pick up some stats later in the game, but also, like the Lions, he brought them all the way back. The Vikings, he brought them almost all the way back. They were 1 stop away from getting the ball with a chance to score and win. So that was not just frivolous. That was real. Like they had a chance to actually go win that game. Jordan Love is not some, but that was, remember if you listen to the Peacock Williamson episode from a couple weeks ago? No, last week. I don't know what day it is. That conversation started with fantasy. And I don't think Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson are fantasy brained, but that is almost the lens that we default to at times. Oh, well, he's like the 14th quarterback in fantasy football. Even that felt disrespectful because it's like, no, this guy's really good. And if he's healthy, he's going to put up huge numbers. And by the way, in 2023, he put up huge numbers and it still didn't matter. Going into 2024, no one believed it was real. And he was like way too low on all of the fantasy charts. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, even that is part of this because, and I don't know, I can't account for the fantasy brain bit, but he was super productive in 2023. Like, was second or third in the league in touchdown passes. That's really good. I don't know if you know that. In fantasy, like, you need the touchdowns. I know he doesn't run a ton, but he ran more that first year as a starter. So, like, what do we... I don't understand it. It can't be that all the disparate parts stink or are average and the whole is great. Like, there is the saying that a team can be or a thing can be in any walk of life better than the sum of its parts. But I would like for you to show me the team in recent NFL history who qualifies for that without either a truly elite head coach elevating those players, truly elite players carrying a coach, or just like the most loaded roster, like the Eagles. Okay, the Eagles are maybe a bad example because they do have such high-end talent, but like I don't think Nick Sirianni is a great coach, and I don't think Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. But that talent on that roster as a whole, top to bottom, is so good that it doesn't matter. Like I told you after the Super Bowl that I thought there were probably 10 or 15 quarterbacks, maybe more, that could have won a Super Bowl with that team. And there are probably 15 coaches that could have won a Super Bowl with that team. Is that where the Packers are? Because no one seems to think that. No one thinks the Packers are just so loaded that Jordan Love is getting backpacked, that Matt LaFleur is getting backpacked, that Brian Gutekunst is a savant, because that's not the case either. So how are they doing this? Someone is lying. Someone is wrong. And the reality is that if you produce at a high level for a long enough period of time, the questions just go away. And I'll give you a good example in my own life. I dismissed, and no, look, 2023 was historically great. I don't think Brock Purdy is a historically great quarterback. But the fact that he was asked to do more straight drop back without Brandon Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel clearly on the decline, with no Christian McCaffrey, with some issues along the offensive line. Yes, I know he has Kyle Shanahan, but he was still highly, highly productive. That told me something about Brock Purdy, that I just underestimated how good he was. Now, yes, Kyle Shanahan did a lot of that same stuff with Jimmy Garoppolo, but he had Deebo Samuel in his prime. He had George Kittle at his apex prime. He had a stable of running backs. They were able to run the ball at will, and that was back when the Shanahan outside zone thing was a little bit more novel. The whole league wasn't running it. The whole league hadn't seen how you defend it, and it was a little bit different than it is now. And I think Jimmy hit a physical cliff. The injuries took a toll. He just wasn't able to do it the same way unless it was against the Packers in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, and he's just going to drive the ball down your field to break your heart against Joe Barry. Jeez. It can't be that none of the players, none of the coaches are that good. It can't be. The team has been too good. The offense has been too productive. I understand in big spots last year, they didn't play great. They played pretty well against Dallas in 2023. They played pretty great against the Lions in Detroit. Pretty great against the freaking Super Bowl champions in 2023 against the Chiefs. This is not a we don't show up for big games problem. Last year was a little bit fluky, a little bit weird. We've seen them win big games. We've seen the offense single-handedly win big games. And we'll see him do it again. Now, as we roll through our Leap roster series, I want to look at some players on the fringes who you need to keep an eye on. Guys who could surprise. We'll do that next on Locked On Packers. The Leap just posted their latest in our roster series. The players expected to be most impactful for the Green Bay Packers this season. I happened to write today's installment. That's not necessarily why we're talking about it, but it did put me in the right headspace to do that. And I thought this was a good part of the list to get into a little bit, precisely because, Jason did our roster players 9 through 82. And those guys I just think are frankly too far down the list for anyone to really care about. Not that they can't surprise and make the team, not that they can't surprise us and get on the practice squad, but it seems pretty unlikely. And so this was, when I was doing this exercise, remember we were talking about, how I went through this and was looking at the different places. This was where the players on this group, I started to go, hey, if things broke right, these guys could make the roster. Amar Johnson, the running back from South Dakota State, was one of those names. He's 80 on our list. And I don't feel like that's above the fold. That's above the paywall. So I'm not feeling like I'm spoiling too much here. But go back to last year. Marshall Lloyd gets hurt. They have Chris Brooks. They elevate Chris Brooks. And Chris Brooks becomes a vital part of the team for long stretches of the season. So what if they have another injury? They're going to have a running back on the practice squad, probably. This is a guy with good athleticism, 88th percentile athlete for the running back position, was productive. You need to have production if you're going to be a non-Power 5 player. There's always a running back that you like to get a little excited about. He's one of those guys. Sam Brown Jr., another guy. I think there's a chance this is the receiver that fans see on family night. They see in the exhibition games. They see the clips on Twitter, X, whatever, Blue Sky. Athletic tools off the charts at his size, 6'2", 200 pounds, a near 99th percentile athlete at the receiver position. And when he was at Houston, he was there with Matthew Golden. And he got more targets than Matthew Golden in the season that they shared together. So the talent is there. The polish isn't, and he's never been super productive, but it's just a name I wanted to flag because those tools are something to really look at. Now, one name that you're probably not going to hear on any other podcast. Cameron Young. Cameron Young was someone when I was going through this list, I went, this is interesting. This is a player that I'm excited to get an opportunity to see. He was a 4th round pick out of Mississippi State for the Seattle Seahawks 2 years ago. And as a rookie, played 16 games for Pete Carroll. As a rookie, played 16 games. Was not crazy productive, but was there. Played over 200 defensive snaps in 16 games. That's a real snap share. That's a real rotational defensive lineman. Then got hurt. New coach comes in. New defense comes in. And they end up moving on from Cameron Young. He's not an overwhelming athlete, but he's got long arms. He was going to play nose tackle for Mike McDonald when he came in, and then he got hurt, knee injury, spent the season on the physically unable to perform list. Should have just said pup if I was going to butcher the name. And now gets an opportunity where the Packers don't have, yes, they drafted Warren Brinson. They brought in Nazir Stackhouse in undrafted free agency, both from Georgia. Those guys don't have NFL reps. We don't know if those guys are ready. And if you want to make the joke about NFL players and the SEC and all that, I'm here for those jokes for sure. But we're talking about a guy who was drafted ahead of both of those players in his draft and has played NFL snaps. If you're the Packers, you may want to just see what those guys have first. But I would expect someone like Young to come in right away and be ahead of those guys. Like, his draft pedigree says he's more talented than those players. The fact that he's played real NFL games, went through 2 offseason programs, was on a team for 2 years, that should give him, and played real snaps, that should give him a leg up. Especially when it's, are you big enough and strong enough in the NFL? When you're going to play like the grownest of grown man positions, if you're going to play nose tackle in the NFL, you need that grown man strength. And this guy, 34.5-inch arms, he's big and powerful at the point, can control blocks. He's not going to give you a ton of pass rush, but they need a T.J. Slayton replacement. And so if you're going to get a guy to do that on the back ends of this roster, that's not someone you're thinking about. That's not Warren Brinson. That's not Nazir Stackhouse. They have the ability to do that too, and they're going to give every opportunity to do that. The Packers are known for letting everyone compete, but I do think they give some preferences to draft picks. I think every team does that. I think one of the reasons is because coaches get involved and they like the players. And they go, hey, let's see what this guy's got. Let's give them an opportunity. So let's see what this guy's got. He'll get an opportunity. We'll see what he's able to do with it. All right, we are going to be back on Friday. I understand, holiday weekend, but we're going to get you a show. And I hope you get a chance to listen to it at some point before next week. And then once we get back to next week, regular schedule. I don't know. I don't think we're going to do any exceptions. Like, I think we're just going to be full on from here on out, from here until, I don't know, next June. We'll be basically 5 days a week. So enjoy the time off, enjoy the holiday, and we'll see you next week in full. But I've got a Friday coming episode for you. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski on X and on Instagram, the podcast, wherever you get any sort of social media. Also, wherever you get podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And of course, we're on our YouTube page. Always, so you can stay Locked On Packers.